Okay, so thank you so much for joining again this morning, everyone. I am Alex Ruhl. I'm the Immersive Tech Lead for PwC UK, and I'm super excited to be diving into a thought-provoking but practical discussion on generative AI this morning. Of course, taking place the same day as the AI Safety Summit, which is a major global event that's bringing together many of the world's leading tech organizations, experts, government officials. And in the next 30 minutes here, we're going to cover off some of those really important and pressing topics, including, the ethical considerations and challenges, as well as those sharing some real practical insights into what we're hearing from our clients, how we'd recommend getting started, and also, really importantly, we want to send you away with some quick wins this morning around how you can get started with implementing GenAI and empowering your workforce with this amazing technology. So to bring this to life, I'm genuinely so honoured to be spending this morning with my brilliant colleagues. So let's do a quick round of intros before we kick off. Charlotte, do you want to go first?
Sure, thanks, Alex. Hello, everyone. I'm Charlotte Byrne, and I'm the AI product lead. And I've spent the last year standing up our central GenAI team here at PwC and supporting our clients to do the same.
Amazing. Maria?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Maria Axente. I'm head of AI public policy and ethics, and I work alongside Charlotte on generative AI. But in the last 7 years, I've been focusing on responsible AI.
Phenomenal. And Surendra?
Hi, I'm Surendra. I work within the workforce practice in UK for PwC. And over last year, I'm completely focused on what GenAI means for workforce. So that's kind of my life for now.
Amazing. I mean, I thought I had the coolest job at PwC, but I'm clearly rivaled by this panel. So listen, let's kind of let's rewind the clock, right? We're barely a year into this Gen AI explosion. And I think with how fast everything's moving, especially, with everything going on this week, it's quite easy to worry that maybe they're not getting it, that they've missed the boat, or maybe actually the other end of the spectrum, that this is such a huge technology shift that it's actually quite hard to wrap your head around, right? Like, what does this mean for me? What does it mean for my business? What does it mean for my people? But the truth is, and Charlotte, I'm sure you're going to kind of agree with this, is that actually this is the perfect time for people to take the time to understand this, right? And I guess what I'm curious to know from you, first of all, is what are clients asking? What are the common themes and what are the common challenges around their thinking when it comes to Gen AI?
Yeah, I think you touched on a really interesting point, Alex. We're barely a year in, so we're seeing some people kind of saying, "Oh, have we missed the journey already?" And then we have kind of a variety ends of their journey. I think it really falls into, I would say, kind of three buckets. There's still those getting started that we're speaking to. We've supported a huge number of clients to kind of set out their AI strategy and look at where it stands against, I suppose, PwC's 5 no regret areas. If we look at governance processes, infrastructure and data readiness, people and culture, and kind of use case identification. So that's really kind of the start of your journey. What do we need to do to get started? There's then those probably at the ideating and testing the technology phase. So these conversations are a lot more focused on how we can work with clients to get hands-on, trying to test out the technology and the different models to identify the right solution for their use cases. It's important to remember that there's such a variety of models out there in terms of cost, size, and performance on certain domains. So this is a really interesting one to explore. And then what I'd say is kind of the third pillar of conversations are those looking at really adopting and embedding the change into production. So this is really moving from pilots, as I said, to embed into the business and the standard processes. But this is kind of earlier stage of conversation, and I expect this area to grow a lot more in kind of 2024, I think. But they're kind of the three areas of the journey that we're seeing clients on. You touched on kind of the issues they're facing, and I think, regardless of where you are on their journey, some of the common themes we're seeing are, prioritizing. Where do we start? What use cases do we tackle within the organization? And even where we've started and already tackled use cases, what do we try and tackle next? You can't do everything at once. And we see a lot of time lost in trying to decide what to do and where to start. So we've developed a prioritization framework that accounts for a number of things, including feasibility, viability, and impact for use case selection. And this has really helped us work with our clients to tease out those kind of higher value and hopefully higher success projects to tackle first. And secondly, I would say data. It's kind of an age-old, maybe not the most exciting one, but poor quality data is poor quality outputs. And while GenAI technology has kind of revolutionized some things, not the need for good quality data. And this is a common issue that we're seeing is people having that kind of easily accessible data in the right format to leverage these technologies on. So we're working with a lot of clients on everything from their data strategy down to kind of the data preparation for the technologies at hand. Because it's more important than ever, data, when it comes to creating a differentiating advantage when using these technologies that can really power a difference for an organization.
Sorry, Charlotte. I was just going to say that we as PwC, we have and continue to go through the same journey. So I think we have experienced this firsthand, and I'll talk about it later. But within the team that I sit in, we are doing something called a GenAI challenge, just to make sure that we are going through this journey, exploring use cases, and then piloting some of them. But we as PwC are going through the same journey as most of our clients in this case.
And I think that's probably quite important, right, for them to understand that actually we're not just giving this advice, because we've read a lot about it. Like, we're testing this internally. We're kind of going through this. And sorry, carry on. You go, Charlotte.
No, that was fine. I was going to say absolutely. And that's where a lot of the insights we've garnered from are from what we've done to ourselves as an organization. As I said, back in January, we stood up the central GenAI team within our AI team. However, that AI team has been around for over 8 years. We've been leveraging LLMs for, a number of years within our product. So a lot of these insights are from kind of, real hands-on experience throughout the journey.
We've been there, done that, seen it, and we continue to iterate.
Exactly.
But yeah, and you've touched on something interesting there around the fact that, this can feel like it's literally just come out of nowhere. But actually, you all know as professionals that this has been a long time coming, and this has been kind of, a gradual kind of evolution. And Maria, you even opened by saying, this is something that you've been focusing on, the responsible AI piece for the better part of a decade. So I'm curious, obviously Charlotte kind of touched on maybe some more technical challenges, that data infrastructure and kind of some of that readiness. But what about on the ethics side of things, on the policy side, on the safeguarding, especially with AI Summit kind of focusing on that particular area? What are you seeing, and how do you think this can be adopted in like a safe and positive kind of way?
A colleague and a friend from the AI community described this week as the World Cup of AI policy. So much has been happening in the last week or so in terms of public policy initiatives around risk and safeguards. It's difficult to keep up with everything. But what I've experienced firsthand in the last week or so is how much excitement and desire to participate in this discussion there is at different levels. Everyone turn up. So it's not just the government officials and the experts meeting at Bletchley Park. Everyone has found their voice and being able to contribute to this conversation. And this is exactly what we need, because this technology, it is so powerful, it's so unpredictable, so untested yet, that we need to have everyone involved in understanding where there could be problems and being able to design guardrails that will go above and beyond the ones that will come via policy, that will come via regulation, even those who ourselves are going to put in place. So being able to have all eyes on deck is the way we would approach addressing the risk of AI. And yes, we have been working on those issues longer than many, and we knew that it will come a moment when the risk of AI will be discussed in the public space. But although the focus of this week is on long-term and existential threat, that should not distract us from the real and present dangers of the risks of AI, not just generative AI, because again, AI has been here for a while. We have been using it, although we weren't in the creator seat as we are with generative AI. So how do we make sure we understand that we still have facial recognition that is highly inefficient and discriminates? Is a report I read yesterday from New Orleans police, and we had countless of examples of AI and even more basic algorithms harming people, exacerbating existing inequalities. And this needs to be addressed alongside thinking about long-term risk. And obviously, generative AI has come to exacerbate some of the existing risk. The risk of data privacy and leak. We've seen Samsung giving access to their developers that ended up using it to improve their code, and that code popped up in a response in a different part. We've seen a lawyer in US using ChatGPT to build a case, only for him to share with the judge that the way ChatGPT has framed his case was so convincing. He didn't feel he needed to double check the credential, the fake credential that were generated, and the example go on and on and on. So besides ourselves in PwC creating those set of guardrails that will be grounded, some of them in regulatory demands, is important for all of us to be mindful and responsible the way we use, but at the same time being brave and considerate, because it's down to individuals, the final the end user, to be able to harness the benefits, but also being able to spot on when there will be issues and behave accordingly. And it's really interesting how much creativity we have seen being generated by the fact that everyone has access. And OpenAI has released obviously usage data most recently to say that September was one of the, if not the best months for use of ChatGPT, which signals clearly more and more people are starting to using it, doing it safely, and having this mindset, ethical mindset, is critical.
And I wonder also that timing around, students starting back at, because that's the thing, right? Is that it's to your point is this is almost. I was talking to someone yesterday actually about the fact that this is very much like the first time we're seeing something that is equally bottom up as it is top down, right? Like people have got access to this technology. So actually these guardrails and discussing these and being able to spot them and have a critical mind when using these tools is actually really important, whether you are, a junior member of staff kind of using it to get inspiration for talking points in a meeting, or whether you are, the boss deciding on how to kind of implement this in your day-to-day kind of tools. But, Surendra, your kind of bread and butter is like looking at workforce and the impact of tools like ChatGPT and others kind of in the workforce. What are you kind of thinking? Like, what is there a stance on, we need to get a really tight grip on this before we allow our employees to kind of use this? Are we empowering our employees? And also, how do employees get ahead with these tools? I mean, I personally, the second that I could get access to ChatGPT as a consumer, I was using it in my, day-to-day life just to test it. And I have no doubt that most kind of, especially tech kind of savvy people or people who are interested in technology will be doing the same. So how do we empower people and employees to kind of to help inform the strategy at their companies?
Yeah, and I do get this question a lot of times. And I was thinking, what is the best example? Because I don't want to jargonize this. And it's like this, right? You're a youngster, you're 16, 17, you see a car, you want to drive a car, right? But to drive the car safely and to know everything about driving the car, I need to teach you how to drive the car. there needs to be rules and regulations of the traffic and the traffic lights, and there needs to be insurance, right? And it's no different when it comes to GenAI or any other technology similar to this. We need to build guardrails. We need to have insurance policies as to we are covered if something goes wrong, and we need to have that upskilling. And that's one side of it. But let's say we did all that, and again, I am always looking for simplistic examples because that's how my mind works. Now, if somebody was to come and tell me, Surendra, you know what, there is a lot of repetitive stuff that you do. You create decks and you write text. I can take that away from you. I'll be like, yeah, sure, because that will allow me to do all the things that I think every day but never get to. And I think that's the space we are slowly moving to, that there is this thing, and maybe not everyone needs to understand what this thing is, but that has the potential to take away my repetitive formulaic things. What that is going to do is suddenly I will have capacity. Now, when I say I, this is potentially everyone in the organization. And then it's almost that good to have problem. What do I do with this capacity? And then comes, do my people have the skills to make use of this capacity? And if my people have the skills to make use of this capacity, can I still operate with the same structure, or do I need a different structure? And if you think about it again simplistically, it's all logical, and I think those are the kind of questions organizations need to tackle. And, we in PwC are also slowly starting to think about. I hope that makes sense. And Maria, I want to throw something at you because this is something that I have been grappling with, right? CVs can be created by GenAI. And I know for a fact that I've spoken to a few organizations who are actively looking at, can I compare CVs using GenAI? So how do we survive in this world wherein GenAI is managing both ends of the spectrum,
Synthetic content, yes. That is a very good question, Surendra. Thank you for asking. It's something that we will have to deal with as we go along. But I'm hoping that what we get out for Bletchley Park in terms of agreement, politicians' agreement, will be that there will be some level of disclosure and transparency that will be required from those who create or use ChatGPT to create content. And perhaps if would have some sort of a disclosure requirement, the use case which was reported yesterday with a survey generated by AI that went alongside an article talking about a woman who passed away somewhere in Australia that generated a huge backlash against Guardian would not have happened because the readers have assumed that Paul was actually human generated, but in fact it was AI generated. So we would need to know firsthand what content is generated a machine and what's still human generated content. However, this is where the big complication comes, because what do I classify as machine generated content? Is it me just proofreading and spelling? Is it considered to be machine generated or machine assisted? Where do you draw the line, and how in this conversation is where do you allocate IP and copyright? And this is again one of the hottest topic on the market right now, is the issue of copyright. The distinction between human created and machine created content, and what do we do about it? How do we use the current IP laws to protect the creators? And we would have seen what this has done, this generative AI revolution has done to Hollywood, where we had a couple of a good month strike of everyone in Hollywood with a view of getting the right protection against what generative AI is bringing. So very good questions. I think we haven't even scratched the surface when it comes of what do we do with the flood of synthetic content that's coming, the tsunami of synthetic content.
Yeah, fascinating. I mean, there's so many things that, to your point, Maria, are in that grey area, right? There is no black and white. There is no blanket kind of like policy that would cover everything. It's so nuanced right now. And actually, I think that's, coming right back to my kind of opening question for you, Charlotte, like one of those big kind of like things that people might be thinking is, wow, like this is such a tidal wave. why should I jump in right now? It seems like there needs to be so much figured out, like before I should jump in. It's almost scary, right? But actually, from the conversations you're having, from the work that we're doing with clients, we know that actually now is the time to be kind of starting to put that kind of framework in place and start to be on that journey. And you can kind of work on putting those ethical and kind of those safety guardrails in place as we do so. So, you know, we're closing in now on the end of our session. And I wanted to kind of bring this back to practical advice, right? Because often, especially, you know, with everything going on this week, it's very easy to get kind of think about the long term, the existential, but let's bring it back to right now, today. What would you tell people listening to this right now are the 3 maybe quick wins, practical steps on getting started with this?
Okay, to do that in 3, Alex, I'll try. But I think, the most important thing to point out is that nobody's behind. But now is really the time to get started and take action. We don't know everything yet, but we need to get comfortable with the fact that we'll learn along the way on this journey. I think, for instance, if people want to get started, look, I expect a number of use cases and net new opportunities from GenAI to come further down the track. But if we're taking a look from today and some of the quick wins, they're mainly coming from efficiency gains. So things like simple Q&A chatbots, where you can embed your own data and documents, will really unlock powerful chat, search, data summarization, and deriving insights from your own trusted data source. So that's something where you can use your own content and the technology that's out there today to kind of create something more powerful for your organization. Maria, you touched on things like code generation. So coding efficiencies from the generation to translation and review and even upskilling in that format is something that we're seeing clients really starting to pick up and discuss on how they can apply that to their organization. And then the more broad sweeping one, which is, content generation. So that, Surendra, you touched on that around first draft reporting and marketing material. It really kind of can contribute to the all round ideation and just bringing new ideas onto the page. So they're kind of some of the 3 efficiency approaches that, we're looking at, but we're also speaking to our clients about and supporting them with. But one thing I will say, if you haven't gotten started, and even if you already have, is to try and bring your employees on the journey with you. Collect potential use cases that you have to create a central log to work from. This is a great way to get people involved in the change by asking them to contribute their ideas based on, their own roles and experience within the organization day to day. And once you have that list, you can really start to identify common trends and potential priorities for you. And that's kind of the approach that we've taken here at PwC and has led to us generating, thousands of potential use cases for us as an organization. So that's a slightly less, I suppose, technical quick win in terms of getting started, but really replicates the approach that we've taken here at PwC.
That's super helpful. And I want to throw it out as well to Surendra, Maria, any kind of final words of wisdom as people get started on this journey? Anything you want to add?
I think from my perspective, whenever I talk to clients, I ask them 2 questions. Do you know what this is? And do you know what this means for you? Now, if you can find the answer to those questions, doing whatever, do a hackathon, do immersive sessions, a showcase, but find the answer to those 2 questions and then start answering the 3rd biggest questions, I think, which we didn't get a chance to discuss today. But am I ready from a cultural point of view to adopt something like this? And I think if you can focus on these 3 questions, I think that will put you in a really good stead going forward.
Absolutely. I think it's both Surendra and Charlotte covered a lot of common sense approaches of how to use generative AI. And if we go in that direction, we have a much higher chance to actually address some of the risks and the harms, because we are thinking, we are actually following this balanced approach we've had on AI in general, which is balancing benefits with risks. And risk management is only as useful as you become risk aware and aware of the limitations of the technology this puts in your hand, and act accordingly. No matter how pristine your risk management capabilities are, it's not going to be helpful. As Surendra said, you don't really have your people with you, and they are on their best behavior. That would be naughty behavior, of course. There will be naughty behavior from actors we cannot control in society. But as long as we play our role and we empower people, we'll limit the propensity for tools to be used or misused or abused.
Yeah, and if I can just add one more thing, actually, when I talked about the Q&A chatbots and using your own data for content creation, I think it's really important to call out to only do that in your own secure platform. So, here at PwC, we have these technologies deployed within our own secure infrastructure. We've also done that for clients as well. And that's really important when it comes to data and IP protection, is that you're clear in where you're putting your data and who has access to it. And that's something that's really important as part of this as well.
Yeah, fabulous. And I think that it's time to wrap up. But if anyone has any follow-up, any kind of, queries, or wants to understand a little bit more about what we've been up to at PwC on this journey, you can connect with all of these fabulous panelists here on LinkedIn, and also have a look at our resources available on the website. But just want to take the time to say thank you so much, everyone, for joining this morning. We really appreciate whether you've been on your commute, whether you got in to work early, whether you're walking the dog, or however you're listening to this. We really appreciate you taking the time. I want to thank my brilliant panelists, Surendra, Maria, Charlotte. Thank you so much for sharing all your insights. It's amazing to be on this journey with you all, and also to be open and to be sharing it with everyone. I think is so important. In the context of where we are in history, this is a really exciting time. And if we look back at these big tech milestones in history, the fact that we all have a voice and we can share and we can kind of like publicly kind of talk through some of these major kind of exciting benefits and challenges, I think is really, really powerful. So thank you. Like I say, you can connect with everyone here on LinkedIn. If you're curious about other emerging technologies, just a very quick plug. Every other Thursday, myself and my co-host Jeremy Dalton run the PwC Tech Talks, which are a LinkedIn live stream where we simplify all things emerging tech. This Thursday, we'll be covering off whether digital assets have a future. So slightly different pace to generative AI, but feel free to join us. You can find out more information about that on my profile. But for now, thank you so much, everyone. Have a phenomenal rest of your Wednesday. We look forward to hearing the latest developments from Bletchley Park, and look forward to catching you all on the next one. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye for now.